Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Apologies if I took last week off, but I was busy. But what else is busy? This week in Southern California sports. March Madness is happening. Lots going on in terms of men's and women's basketball. Who's still in, and who's basically taking a trip back to the offseason. Also, the Lakers now have another injury to deal with. They have LeBron James out for approximately 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Gosh darn it. Just when we thought the Lakers were attempting to get a break, this happens. And then USC versus UCLA in the NCAA Men's Water Polo Championship. Which team came out on top, and which team unfortunately fell short to the other Southern California team. Also, we have plenty going on in terms of hockey, some NFL free agency news, and a whole lot more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Once again, last week I had to take it off because I was just simply too busy, and last Saturday I was busy, and then last Friday I was busy, so I just was like, I could take 1 week off of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. It's the first time in 36 episodes that I took a week off. But it's not like a set point where I haven't had a week off in over a year, so I guess there's a first time for everything. But I like being consistent. But I'm back, and it's time to go over some Southern California sports action. But first, we have a few words from our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Legacy Financial. 2020 was indeed a tough year. However, staying positive, keeping your faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're in a financial struggle at the moment, you're doing well and you want to get to the next level, or you're looking for a new opportunity to work for yourself and earn more money part-time, give AO a call at 510-928-2104. That number again is 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. AO and her husband, Andrew, are just two people on a mission to help people and families build a legacy. You can follow them on Twitter at legacy_uncut, and you can follow them on Instagram at sims_uncut. Because who else wants to start a legacy? Everyone needs a legacy in their life. Our second sponsor is Mama's Always Right Media. Are you feeling overwhelmed with schoolwork? Are those essays keeping you up at night? Don't lose sleep. Just pick up the phone. Mama's Always Right Writing Agency will give you quality essays, and they will make their deadlines. Sleep soundly knowing that they are on the job. For more information, call 626-653-3649. That number again is 626-653-3649. And while you're at it, check out Mama's Always Right Media's podcasts, such as It Goes Down in the PM. Make sure to check out the newest and latest episode of It Goes Down in the PM, brought to you by Mama's Always Right Media. Also, the second podcast for Mom is Always Right Media is Coffee After Dark. Don't miss the next chapter of your favorite love story. Check out Season 2 of Coffee After Dark, brought to you by Mom is Always Right Media, where they will help you open your business from start to finish. And then our final sponsor is the Sports Rundown. Are you a sports fan but have too much going on in your life these days to keep up with the 24/7 news cycle? Or maybe you are new to sports and want to understand the nuances better. If so, then the Sports Rundown is for you. They are a new podcast that gives you basic, professional, and collegiate sports news, stats, tidbits, and fun facts by the time you get to work, start that second cup of coffee, or finish walking the dog. Enough information to make you rich with knowledge involving sports while talking about current sporting events. And they will teach you something fun along the way, like about mascots, uniforms, history, feel-good stories, and sports rules. And for all you soccer studs out there, they even cover the Premier League. New episodes drop Monday and Friday mornings, so come give them a listen. Thank you to our 3 sponsors for being the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And thank you to them for helping keep the lights on, or in this case, the mic on, in terms of IE Sports Radio. So, with that out of the way, it's time to get on into some Southern California sports. So, honestly, there's a lot to talk about in terms of NCAA men's basketball, but I'm going to save that for a little later. I'm going to actually jump into, or dive on into, something different. And I'm going to dive into some men's water polo action. So, last weekend was the NCAA Men's Water Polo Championship. Why is that significant? Because the 2 teams that faced one another were USC, which was actually the home site of the NCAA championships, and UCLA. So 2 storied programs, 2 rival schools were facing one another in men's water polo for the granddaddy of them all. So just to briefly and blow by blow kind of recap this game, UCLA took a 3-0 lead to start, and they actually led 3-0 at halftime. And the thing about USC was that their offense could not muster up anything, and it was quite surprising because they actually put up 12 goals against Cal in the semifinals. I know UCLA actually put up 11 goals and won by 1 against Stanford, but it's kind of concerning and pondering why USC only put up 0 goals in the first half when they were blistering hot against Cal in the semis. So then USC actually got to they actually got it going as they scored the next 3 goals to tie the game at 3-3, but UCLA had an answer for them. They actually scored the next 2 goals to lead 5-3, and then eventually they led 6-3, and then it looked as if USC was going to come back. I think they got the score down to as little as 6-5, and I think they tied it at 6-6, and then UCLA just had a goal in the early moments of the fourth quarter to make it 7-6, and USC just could not answer. But to the credit of USC, their defense actually played well. Their defense played as best as they could. It's just that the offense just could not score, which was a bummer. But UCLA's defense also stepped up, and honestly, they really locked up USC. They prevented the ball from going in the 5. Their man-down defense was absolutely ran to perfection, and everything they did defensively was just on point. Not saying that USC wasn't on point, but they just had to play from behind, and when you're facing a team like UCLA, you cannot play from behind when it comes to the Bruins. So in the end, UCLA held on and won 7-6, which actually was quite amazing. I honestly thought USC was going to win that since they were the home team. But USC lost, and every USC fan is sad face. And every USC fan is most likely calling for Clay Helton to be fired. Why? Because reasons. So there was that right there. And as a USC fan, I am disappointed they lost, because I would have liked to see them win the NCAA tournament as a 4 seed. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and the Bruins were able to come out victorious. I do have friends that play on UCLA, though, so honestly, I can't get too mad at that, and they earned it. It was absolutely amazing. And I actually got to tip my cap to UCLA on just an overall great great game and how they were able to just answer anything USC threw at their way. So, and believe it or not, this was actually UCLA's first NCAA championship under the guidance of Family Director of Athletics, Martin Jarmond. So, good for them. I'll give them somewhat of an applause. As we give a shout to the chat room, he says we have Larry B with his annual or consistent message of game time, and I also gotta give a shout to Pierre Moss. He says let's get it, and then Marcus pops in the chat room, and he says the fight game is very busy today, but you have a great show, Teran. Hey, I appreciate it, Marcus, and I hope you had a great birthday. Happy birthday on air, Marcus. I honestly am proud to call you a teammate and a brother, and I'm happy you were able to tune into Set Point and SoCal Supreme Sports Show whenever you can. And I appreciate you popping in, buddy. It really means a lot, because, as he said, we're brothers. Yeah. But, yeah, I'm not trying to get sentimental or anything. No, but back to UCLA, USC, and men's water polo. Yeah, UCLA really earned that one. And I can't get mad at USC all that much, but when you're playing from behind, it never works out. It never, ever, ever works out. 3-goal deficit is most likely the worst deficit to face in any goal-scoring sport. So, there's that. But that's going to close the book on the NCAA men's water polo season. At least we got one team winning from Southern California. I know as a USC fan, I would have liked to see the Trojans come out on top. But again, I have friends that play for UCLA, and UCLA just straight up earned it. They knocked off Stanford, and they beat USC in the championship. So there's that for the NCAA men's water polo season. We had a lot of firsts in that NCAA men's water polo season. We had USC and UCLA not being the dominant teams until late in the season. We also had Cal Baptist winning their first conference tournament championship, and they also made their first berth in the NCAA men's water polo Division I tournament. So there's that. So a lot of history was made in terms of NCAA men's water polo in terms of some of the Southern California schools. I only wish Pepperdine got to participate, considering they only had one conference team they played against, and that was San Jose State, which was a bummer because all of their other conference teams were Big West Conference migrated, as Long Beach State, UC Santa Barbara, who else? UC Irvine. I think a few other schools, unfortunately, had their fall seasons canceled because men's water polo is a fall sport, and the Big West, unfortunately, I honestly think the Big West Conference jumped the gun when it came to canceling all fall sports. It really sucks. I really dislike it, but it is what it is. So there's that for men's water polo. Now let's jump to the NBA, where we talk about the Lakers and the Clippers. The Lakers are pretty much have a lot more to talk about, as unfortunately for the Lakers, they are kind of in a bad situation. Well, they're not in a bad situation, but unfortunately they're in the situation of the worst case scenario. Both Anthony Davis and LeBron James are out. LeBron, I think it was this past Monday, or was it? No, it was last Saturday. LeBron suffered a high ankle sprain. Surprisingly, he was able to still play in the game for a little bit more. He actually knocked down a 3, which is kind of reminiscent of Kobe's ACL tear, where he made 2 free throws and then got subbed out. Basically, LeBron was the same thing, except he made a 3 until he decided to go to the locker room and check out what he got hurt in. And unfortunately, he has a high ankle sprain, and he's out 4 to 6 weeks, which is very bad. It really is not good for LeBron. I know LeBron's a fast healer, but I mean, he's getting up there in age, and high ankle sprains are pretty bad if you ask me. So this is really hurt. And the other worst part is that the trade deadline's passed, so the Lakers can't make any moves. They could sign, or they could go to buying out contracts or signing free agents, but that can only that only works for how long? It could only work for some time. And Anthony Davis is still out with his knee injury. He's out for at least 2 more weeks. But he is making progress, but according to Frank Vogel, Anthony Davis is a ways away, which is a complete bummer, and it's really hurt the Lakers tenfold. So it's not good. It's not looking good for the Lakers. Fortunately, the Lakers did win their first game without Anthony Davis and LeBron James as they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers last night. I believe it was like 100 to like 89, I want to say. Let me just double check that really quick. No, it was 100 to 86. I was close, but the fact that the Lakers held Cleveland to only 86 is quite impressive. I know the Cavs aren't the greatest team in the world, and it shows within their record and in their standings of the Eastern Conference. But honestly, it's a start for the Lakers. The Lakers going forward now, prior to that, to yesterday's game, they had lost 4 straight. They lost Thursday to the 76ers. Believe it or not, they were actually tied with the Sixers at halftime, 54 apiece. And then the Lakers put forth probably the worst third quarter anyone's ever seen. And then they allowed 30-plus points from the Sixers in the fourth. But the Lakers almost rallied back to win. But unfortunately for the Lakers and all their fans, former Laker Danny Green sank a dagger 3, which broke every Lakers fan's hearts. Karma. You Laker fans shouldn't have made all those threats to Danny Green. Like, come on now. Anyway, this past Tuesday, the Lakers also lost to the New Orleans Pelicans, 128 to 111, and then this past Sunday, or last Sunday, the Lakers lost to the Phoenix Suns, 111 to 94. It's been pretty bad without LeBron and AD. And then last Saturday, they lost to the Atlanta Hawks 99 to 94, which I get Atlanta as one of the hotter teams in the NBA, but it would have been great to still have LeBron. And I know the Suns are really good this year. Like, the Suns have been one of the more up-and-coming teams. They've surged to the top. And then the Pelicans, I forget how good the Pelicans are up and down sometimes. The Pelicans are 19 and 25. I think that's probably their worst loss of the 4-game losing streak without LeBron and AD. But I will also say this, that the Pelicans have a lot of talent on that team, so there's that. But it's all good for the Lakers. I mean, for me, I'm not overly worried, but looking at their schedule, it kind of gets a little tough going forward. Sunday they have the Orlando Magic, which I think they can handle them, considering Orlando has pretty much traded away all their key pieces. And then Wednesday they have the Bucks. That's going to be tough. And then next Friday they have the Kings. And then next Sunday they have the Clippers, which is not going to be an easy matchup, especially without LeBron and AD. Like, looking at the Lakers' schedule, they're probably not going to get LeBron back until like the latter part of the season, if not the first round of the playoffs. And I'm still confident the Lakers can make the playoffs. It's just that their seeding could take a hit, though. But when it comes to the Lakers, I'm not too concerned. With LeBron and AD healthy, or at least close to healthy, I think the Lakers can do damage in the playoffs still. Like, they're still the reigning NBA champions for a reason. And they've got some good key pieces like Montrezl Harrell. They have Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Kuzma. I kind of wish the Lakers still kept Dwight Howard, but it is what it is. Marc Gasol just recently came back after he got COVID. It's unfortunate for him that he got COVID because he social distanced and he had his mask on at all times, and he still caught the Rona, which really sucks. He was out, I think he was out for like a month or so, if not close to a month. Either way, it was just not fun times for the Lakers after he got the Rona and without LeBron and AD. So Lakers are going to have a little bit of a tough time going forward, but I'm still confident they could still win the NBA championship. It's just going to take everyone being back at full strength, if not near full strength. And you kind of have to give. You all still have to remember that the Lakers didn't get the full amount of rest that everyone else did, or almost everyone else did. Considering they only had like 2 months to rest, along with the Miami Heat, and then the season, poof, just came back. So it's rather unfortunate for the Lakers that they're kind of in this situation. But I'm still confident they could still win the NBA championship, or at least get to the finals. Like, I know Brooklyn's looking good. The Sixers are looking impressive. The Bucks are starting to catch fire. And I think it's just going to be between those three. I mean, the Eastern Conference has been a merry-go-round in terms of seeds. Like, believe it or not, heck, even Charlotte has a chance to make the playoffs. And they were one of the last few teams I would have expected to make the postseason. Though with LaMelo Ball out, it's going to be a lot tougher for them. So we'll have to see what happens with the Hornets. But that's going to do it for the Lakers talk. Now let's go to the Clippers, which they play the 76ers tonight. Yeah, they play them tonight at 7. That's going to be a really good game. And the Clippers, their next game is Monday against the Milwaukee Bucks at home. Then they have the Orlando Magic the day after. Oops. And then and then next Thursday they have the Denver Nuggets, and then on Sunday they got the Lakers. But the Clippers' schedule starts to pick up a little as well. After they face the Lakers, they got the Trailblazers, then the Suns. Then it starts to slow down a little as they have the Rockets, then the Pistons, then the Pacers, which the Pacers are still pretty good. Then they got the Pistons again. Then it starts to pick up a little with the Sixers. Then it starts to slow down with the T-Wolves. Then it goes back up to the Trailblazers, then the Grizzlies. So I think the Clippers are still in a good position to clinching at least a playoff spot. I mean, can they still clinch a top 2 or 3 seed? Of course. But if you're a Clippers fan, where do you want to be in terms of the Western Conference standings? They're 4 games back of the Jazz. And the Lakers are 5 games back, I guess it's worth noting. But what if the Clippers meet the Lakers in the conference semis? That would be rather interesting right there. Or they could also meet the Phoenix Suns in the conference semis. And the Suns are just as hungry to get to the conference finals as much as the Clippers are. So it's going to be quite interesting for the Clippers going forward. And honestly, anything can happen when it comes to the Clippers. Anything. So this past week, the Clippers on Thursday, they beat the San Antonio Spurs 98-85. They beat them on Wednesday as well, winning 134-101. On Monday, they beat the Atlanta Hawks 119-110. And then last Saturday, they beat the Hornets 125-98. So the Clippers have been on a little bit of a hot streak. They're on a 4-game winning streak, and this is actually looking like it's going to be. This is actually looking like it's catching fire at the right time for the Clippers. Because, like I said, but the next 2 games are going to be really tough for the Clippers. It sucks they don't get the primetime treatment, but the Monday game, they have that Monday game, which is kind of awkward, but it is what it is. So in recent news for the Clippers actually traded away Lou Williams and I think it was like a second-round pick or a future picks to the Atlanta Hawks for Rajon Rondo. So, all right. So I'm going to be really honest. I think the Clippers lost this trade. I think Lou Williams has a lot more upside than Rajon Rondo offensively, and Lou Williams is a dog. Now, I get Rajon Rondo still has it in him. He's that scrappy, feisty player, and he's like that floor general, that player's coach. But I think, was it really worth trading your 6th man? I mean, I know the Clippers don't want to part with too many key pieces, but I think they probably should have traded one of their other pieces, like Nick Batum. I think that would be a little bit more of an ideal trade for the picks. But maybe I'm seeing something that I'm not seeing with Nick Batum than I am with Lou Williams. I think Lou really helps out the Clippers offense, and he's that sixth man who provides a spark, and he's a guy, that dude's a dog right there. So I don't know if the Clippers really won that trade. I say they didn't. I think the Hawks won that trade, and once again the Clippers have traded away draft picks. Like, if the Clippers don't win anything by the time Kawhi becomes a free agent, or anyone, all those other players that they've signed back in the summer of 2019 don't make a big splash, then the monster trade for Paul George is going to look like a complete joke. So the Clippers are basically all in right now. Like, they got to win right now or next year or by the time Kawhi's contract is done. Otherwise, the Clippers are going to Clipper. So I don't like seeing the Clippers suffer, but it just makes me wonder if the Clippers are really cursed, because they had a 3-1 lead on the Nuggets, and they were leading in Game 5, and yet the Clippers found a way to lose, and then they got blown out in Game 7, which you hate to see it, especially if you're a Clippers fan. But if you're a Lakers fan, you love to see it. So, so there's that right there. So, in terms of, so that's going to be that for the NBA. Like I said, the Clippers are the third seed they're number 3 in the Western Conference. They're 3 games. I think they're 4 games back of the Utah Jazz, which are still dominating. But I will say this about Utah: until the Jazz win in the postseason, I do not want to hear anyone putting them in the same category as a championship team. I don't want to see any one of that. Because to me, I think Utah is kind of like the Peyton Manning of the NBA. In terms of like regular season and postseason performance. They look good in the regular season, then everyone's saying, oh wow, the Jazz look really nice. And then in the postseason, they find a way to foul it up, and they find a way to like lose in embarrassing fashion. Hence last year, where they lost a 3-1 lead to Denver. But Denver was a lot better than most people were boasting. As even I was saying that the Nuggets were going to be a problem, but no one was believing me. Everyone was saying this isn't the Denver sports show. No one cares about the Denver Nuggets. Well, I hate to disagree, but I disagree. So that's going to be that for the NBA. And the Lakers are 5 games back of the Jazz. I don't think they're going to catch the Jazz at this rate, unless they get LeBron and AD back in like 3 weeks. Like, I still think AD's like 2 or 3 weeks away, if not 4, just to be safe. And even though LeBron can be a quick healer, the dude needs to be cautious. He's like up in his mid-30s, and he doesn't want his ankles to shut down. So Lakers are going to have other players step up. And even if it means buying out teams' contracts, such as the Andre Drummond, it would be... It is what it is. Like, I'd like to see Andre Drummond with the Lakers. Gives them a better big man presence. I'm not saying there's anything bad with Marc Gasol, but Drummond would be really huge. And then also, we could all bring back the Barack Obama singing the Jumpman theme, where he's saying, Drummond, 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 Drummond. This boy's up to something. So, yeah. Anyway, but there's that for everything in the NBA. I'm just going to briefly skim through the Chargers signings. So the Chargers, I actually lost track of who the Rams got. I know the Rams lost Troy Hill and John Johnson to the Cleveland Browns, but then they got a few other key pieces. As for the Chargers, they've been signing a lot of offensive linemen to boost up their offensive line. They signed Corey Linsley, I think his name is, and then they signed one really good offensive lineman from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the Chargers also signed Jared Cook, which I'm a little on the fence about that. I kind of think it's a good signing considering they lost Hunter Henry. But I also would have liked the Chargers to go after someone like Robert Tonyan. I was also going to say maybe they should have gotten Jonnu Smith, but the Patriots kind of snagged him. It would have also been great to see the Chargers re-signing Hunter Henry, considering, Hunter Henry is still a great tight end. I don't think he's on the level of Rob Gronkowski or George Kittle or Darren Waller or Travis Kelce, but I think he would have been a great tight end option because now you have an old Jared Cook, which he's had his fair share of great moments, but he's getting up there in age, and he also had a poor performance in the playoffs last year, especially when the Saints in the Saints-Bucks game where he fumbled the ball, which was not ideal. So that's why I'm a little skeptical of the Jared Cook signing, but it's only for a 1-year deal. And also, Jared Cook could mentor Donald Parham, which was their standout young tight end when Hunter Henry wasn't healthy. And I also doubt the Chargers are going to bring back Virgil Green, their long-time tight end, which I think he's getting up there in age, and he also tore his ACL in one of the Chargers games. I think it was Week 6 against the Jaguars, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it was Week 6. So, it was Week 6, because Week 1 they played Cincy, 2 was KC, 3 was Carolina, 4 was Tampa Bay, 5 was New Orleans. Yeah, it was Week 6 when... I'm sorry, not Week 6. Week 7 against Jacksonville. Week 6 they had their bye because of everything flip-flopping due to COVID and whatnot. So, there's that. But at least the Chargers are starting to become active in terms of beefing up their offensive line. I still think they should go offensive line because I actually saw something on Twitter saying that Phillip Rivers never won a Super Bowl or never made it to a Super Bowl because he had a bad offensive line. And everyone's saying that Justin Herbert, the Chargers should not go offensive line in the draft, and they should maybe take Kyle Trask. But honestly, I think the Chargers should still go offensive line. Whether it's Christian Darrisaw or Elijah Vera Tucker or any of that kind of sort, I think the Chargers got to go O-line in the first round. They have the number 13 pick, and mostly everyone's not going to be taking O-line. They're either going to be taking quarterback or wide receiver or cornerback or defensive back or anything along that sort. I think the one team that's going to be taking Penei Sewell, which that's most likely going to be the top offensive lineman in the draft. Matter of fact, he is the top offensive lineman in the NFL, or in the this upcoming draft, is Penei Sewell, and he's most likely going to go to the San Francisco 49ers, or he's going to the Cincinnati Bengals. If the 49ers pass on him, then I'd be more confused about that than ever. But some people are saying that the Niners are going to draft Penei Sewell, but there's also the fact that the 49ers could use that pick on maybe Zach Wilson or Mac Jones. I'm sorry, not Mac Jones, Justin Fields of Ohio State. I think Zach Wilson is going to the Jets, and then number 1 is most likely going to be Trevor Lawrence, obviously, and then 4 down is basically up in the air. And then you also have the possibility of Trey Lance, but I think when it comes to 4 through 12, I don't think any of those teams really need quarterbacks. They just need wide receivers or a defensive presence. I think if it's not going to be the 49ers, if the 49ers don't take Penei Sewell, there is the possibility the Bengals could snatch him, but there's also the possibility that the Bengals could take Jamar Chase, the wide receiver. But I'm pretty sure Penei Sewell's not going to fall in the hands of the Chargers. Like, if the Chargers get Penei Sewell, then that offensive line is going to look very good. But I'm not going to guarantee it. So I think it's either going to be Darisaw or Elijah Vera Tucker or anything along that sort. So there's that. And then also some people are saying the Chargers should draft cornerback or wide receiver or Kyle Trask, the tight end. I say no. No. Unless the Chargers get another first-round pick like they did last year from the Patriots, I think the Chargers definitely should go O-line, just because you can never have too many good offensive linemen, especially if they want to protect Justin Herbert, since they don't want Justin Herbert to suffer the same fate as Joe Burrow did, which I feel so bad for. But he's on his way to coming back, so we'll see. But on that note, we're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we'll be talking some NCAA March Madness in terms of men's and women's basketball. And then I will wrap things up and send you all on your way. So you are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after a word from our messages. And we will see you on the other side.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
Back with segment 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. You could catch all of our amazing shows here on iSports Radio, and you could listen to them on several different streaming platforms such as Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. So definitely tune into all of our amazing shows. Let's Whine About Sports will be on tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we still have yet to hear word about the finale of 3 and Out. And Larry B is back in the chat room, and it's perfect timing as well. So now it's time to get into the second part of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We're going to be talking about, you know it, NCAA men's and women's basketball in terms of March Madness. So let's start with the women first, because there are only 2 Southern California teams that made the postseason. One being one making the NCAA tournament, and then one making the College Women's Invitational the Women's National Invitational Tournament, the WNIT. So we'll start with the NCAA tournament. So UCLA has been somewhat of an amazing team. They've had some good standout victories against teams like Arizona, Stanford, Oregon, you name it. And they were the number 3 seed of their region. I'm thinking, okay, well, UCLA looks pretty good should have themselves a deep run because they have some talent on that team. I know they've been through a lot of ups and downs, and I know they had a couple players ineligible because they were out of the country, which is really dumb. But UCLA made it work, and they actually was the runner-up in the Pac-12 tournament. So UCLA got past their first-round matchup against Wyoming, which, that's no surprise right there. I'm surprised Wyoming made it into the NCAA tournament. Nothing against the teams in the Mountain West Conference, but come on. If you had Wyoming winning, then I want you to write me a 500-word essay on why you thought Wyoming was going to beat UCLA. But that's not the point. So the second round matchup for UCLA was against Texas, and I didn't know much about Texas. I know Texas is good at most sports, but except for men's basketball, but that's the point. So surprisingly, UCLA just did not have a good game. UCLA had probably one of their worst games of the season. They shot the ball poorly. Texas was just all over them like flies on cowpucky. And to the dismay of UCLA fans, UCLA lost in the round of 32, which, that was quite the bummer. Like, I know UCLA had that situation of not having 2 of its standout players available because of the whole COVID thing and them not being eligible because they're international players, which is dumb. But I thought UCLA was at least going to make it to the Sweet 16 on the women's side, because UCLA has been in the top 10 throughout most of the season. And while they have had their hiccups in terms of losses, they've made up for it in terms of good wins. But I guess this is the ugly side of March Madness, that anything can happen. So unfortunately for UCLA's women's basketball team, they are out. They lost in the round of 32, but they still had a good year, so I tip my hat to you, Lady Bruins. So there are now no more Southern California teams in the NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament, which is saddening, but it is what it is. So now jumping over to the Women's NIT, California Baptist, I'm not going to say Cal Baptist, California Baptist, or CBU, it's tough to determine what seed they got, but they did finish their undefeated season. They were 28-0, which was awesome sauce. And that was cool and all. But when it came to the NIT, it was kind of a different story. But their first round matchup in the women's NIT, it was I forgot who they played in the first round. They played New Mexico in the first round, and while it wasn't the prettiest win, they were able to win that first round game 90-85. And the WNIT was 32 teams, so you needed to win 5 games in order to win the WNIT. So there's that. So California Baptist won that game. They moved to 25-0. Their second round game was against San Francisco, which they didn't have too much time to rest, and San Francisco comes from the nitty-gritty West Coast Conference, which is home to Gonzaga and BYU, and both those teams made the NCAA tournament, with BYU pulling an upset in the first round, while Gonzaga lost in the first round, coincidentally. But the Lady Lancers were able to beat San Francisco 90-82. They love scoring in the 90s, which is kind of funny, but now they realize that the postseason is getting really, really tough. All these teams are shooting the lights out, which is cool beans. Adam says, blast you, Oregon State. Yeah, I'll be getting into them in a little bit. But as for California Baptist women's basketball, their season unfortunately came to an end this past Monday, where they lost to Rice in the regional final of the WNIT, losing 79-55, which the Lancers really shot poorly from the field. Like, it was not good. Like, when you're not shooting good against Rice, that's when you know your goose is cooked. And it was sad to see the Lady Lancers ousted in the regional finals, especially since I liked their story. They didn't get to go to the NCAA tournament, and I wanted to see them complete the undefeated season. But it is what it is. But they still had a phenomenal year, like, overall. Like, the fact that they went undefeated throughout the regular season and through their conference tournament is absolutely a testament to how far the Lady Lancers have gotten as a Division I program. And I really hate how the whole transition rule prevents them from going into the NCAA tournament. And I think next year they're not going to be able to make the NCAA tournament, even if they win their conference tournament, which is complete dog doo. But it is what it is. So, unfortunately, that is the case for CBU, but they had such a phenomenal year, and I hope they're able to do it again next year and the year after. I think the late CBU is starting to make a name for themselves in women's basketball, but for right now, their season is unfortunately over, as well as all of the NCAA Southern California women's basketball teams. So there's that. So let's close the book on an amazing NCAA women's basketball season involving Southern California teams such as UCLA, Cal Baptist, and, well, I guess UC Irvine, but they didn't really have the greatest year, but they still made the Big West Tournament Finals, which was nice. So there's that. And Adam says the NCAA is filled with all kinds of dumb rules. Facts. I really agree. But it's kind of all for, like, the money and all that. And I think that's pretty much all they care about is, like, the money. And it sucks because money talks. But it is what it is. So now let's jump to the NCAA men's basketball tournament. So there were 4 Southern California teams that made their way into the NCAA tournament. The first team was USC, which was no surprise. USC finished second in the Pac-12 standings. Cursed tiebreaker rules. And then they've been in the top 25, and they've had some decent standout wins. Unfortunately, they lost to Colorado in the semifinals of the Pac-12 tournament. Don't know if they would have beaten Oregon State, which I'm going to get into for a little bit. But USC was awarded the number 6 seed in the West region. And also UC Santa Barbara was awarded the 12th seed in the West region. I guess that kind of contradicts what I said about USC being the first team from Southern California in the NCAA tournament, because UC Santa Barbara was also in there as well. So yeah, those two got in. San Diego State was awarded the 6th seed. I don't remember what region they're in. I want to say they're in, like, the South Division. I'm not entirely certain, but they were the 6th seed in one of the other regions. And I honestly had high hopes for the Aztecs. As for UCLA, they were awarded the 12th seed I'm sorry. They were awarded the 11th seed of the NCAA tournament, but they actually had a play-in game against Michigan State, which was quite fun, considering Michigan State has had that knack of upsetting teams. Adam says the money under the facade of caring about the kids. Yeah. Yep, that's the NCAA for you. So, as for UCLA, they basically had to start the NCAA tournament with a play-in game, which was not fun for them. But they were able to win their play-in game against Michigan State quite nicely. They had to go overtime, but it still was a testament to them winning their first winning in the tournament, winning their play-in game. So they got the honor of playing BYU, and surprisingly, UCLA beat BYU in the first round. They throttled them, which was quite nice. Which I kind of expected, just because BYU is one of the most overhyped schools in all of the world, and I don't get what people see in BYU. I get they pushed Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference Championship, but they lost terribly to USC, and they had to go overtime with Pepperdine, which I'll be talking about them in a little bit. But honestly, I don't see anything special about BYU. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm just not on the hype train that everyone else is when it comes to BYU. So, there's that. USC in the first round was able to take down Drake 72-56, which that wasn't overly much of a surprise. Drake actually had to play in a play-in game as well. They had faced Wichita State, which that was a thriller of the game, but unfortunately Drake did not have a good shooting night against USC. USC pretty much beat them by 16, and they were able to advance to the round of 32. Unfortunately, those were the only two teams that made it out of the first round, or the round of 64, as UC Santa Barbara fell to Creighton 63-62. They missed a potential game-winning layup. Well, not game-winning layup, but a go-ahead layup, which could have given them the lead, but it is what it is, which it sucks missing those type of shots. But UC Santa Barbara had themselves a pretty good year. Like, they won the Big West Conference regular season and conference tournament, so they have quite a whole lot to be proud of. I really wanted them to make it past the round of 64, because the team that beat them, Creighton, beat Ohio, which Ohio actually upset Virginia, the reigning NCAA champion, considering last year we didn't get an NCAA tournament. And now Creighton faces Gonzaga tomorrow at 11:10 a.m. Pacific time. So, what would have been Santa Barbara being in the Sweet 16 is now making us think technically UC Santa Barbara should be in the Sweet 16. But don't think that UC Santa Barbara is the only team that should probably be in the Sweet 16. San Diego State was also another team that lost in the round of 64, as San Diego State lost to Syracuse 78-62. San Diego State straight up got spanked by the Orange. Like, Syracuse is one of those sneaky good teams that always has a good team, and they play in the very tough ACC. I get San Diego State also played in the tough Mountain West Conference, but it's not the greatest competition. It has some good competition, but it doesn't have that wow competition. Just my little take. But San Diego State lost in the first round, which really sucks. And then Syracuse beat West Virginia 75-72, and West Virginia was surprisingly the number 3 seed in the region, in the Midwest region. So Syracuse, guess where they're at? They're in the Sweet 16. I actually had San Diego State going to the Sweet 16 in one of my brackets. I think. Yeah, I did. I did have San Diego State going to the Sweet 16 in one of my brackets. Unfortunately, the Aztecs broke my heart. They broke the heart of San Diego. Might as well just call them the Chargers of college men's basketball. Okay, that wasn't really funny, but you get what I mean. So, USC and UCLA are the lone and Southern California teams that are in the Sweet 16. UCLA plays Alabama in their Sweet 16 match tomorrow at 4:15 p.m. USC, on the other hand, has a familiar foe matchup as they will be facing Oregon in the Sweet 16 at 6:45 p.m. Pacific time. Now, how Oregon got there is quite astounding. Oregon actually had a forfeit win as VCU unfortunately was unable to play their game because of COVID and whatnot. So Oregon basically got a first round bye to the round of 32, where Oregon straight up stomped on Iowa 95-80. Whew. So now Oregon gets to face USC. UCLA's opponent, Alabama, didn't really have that same path as Alabama beat Iona 68-55. Then they beat Maryland 96-77. So that's how UCLA is going to be facing Alabama in the round of 62. Now, let's break down those little matchups. So Alabama has been one of the bigger surprises in terms of NCAA men's basketball. Alabama, to me, has really impressed me, and they're going to be really tough for UCLA. But UCLA is playing some of their best basketball right now, and honestly, it wouldn't shock me if UCLA upset Bama. But UCLA's got to be on their P's and Q's because Bama is not playing games. So if UCLA does manage to upset Bama, they would get the winner of Florida State, Michigan. So there's that right there. But we'll have to see what happens. It's not guaranteed that UCLA will make it out of the round of 16, but with how the Pac-12 is doing, it's quite impressive. So as for USC plays Oregon. So Oregon, to me, is going to be USC's toughest matchup out there. Now, for those that know, USC beat Oregon in the regular season in Pac-12 play by 14. It even got to a point where one of USC's players was outscoring the entire Oregon team. It was outscoring them at one point. But I think beating Oregon a second time is going to be really tricky. Oregon just had an off night against USC starting out. And then they just couldn't rebound from there. It got to the point where Oregon was down by as many as, I think, 27. So USC's really got their work cut out for them. Oregon is playing some really darn good basketball. Ever since they lost to USC, they wound up running the table and winning the Pac-12 regular season championship. But then they lost to Oregon State in the Pac-12 conference semifinals to the eventual champion Oregon State. However, Oregon has rebounded quite nicely and is in the Sweet 16 after a bye win, which that feels so weird saying that, and a victory over Iowa, which was a dominant victory. I didn't think they'd actually make it out of the round of 32. I know Oregon has a good team, but to freaking beat Iowa, man, the Big Ten really is disappointed. Same can be said for the Big 12 as well, so there's that. But I really want USC to make it to the Elite Eight. As a USC fan, it would be really cool to see them in the Elite Eight. Now, their most likable matchup is going to be Gonzaga if they don't lose to Creighton tomorrow. But if USC does make it to the Elite Eight, I think I'd be happy no matter what happens. I just want them to beat Oregon a second time, just to shut up all the Oregon fans. Oh, USC wouldn't have beaten Oregon the second time around. No, I think USC is playing some great basketball as of late. The fact that USC smoked Kansas of all teams. Kansas is that perennial blue-collar team that always is a great team year in and year out. But USC stomped on Kansas 85-51. Absolute thumping right there. I know Kansas was missing 3 of its players, but I knew USC was going to win. USC came in with a great game plan, and they straight up smoked Kansas. They basically blitzed them. Like, that surprised everyone, but it didn't surprise me. I knew USC was going to come out hot, and as long as they held on to the lead, they were not going anywhere. So that's how USC got to the Sweet 16, where they get to face their Pac-12 rival in Oregon. So that's how fun it is. But speaking of the Pac-12 as a whole, Oregon State, now this is probably the biggest shocker of the tournament. Oregon State upset Loyola of Chicago 65-58, and they have advanced to the Elite Eight, where they'll face the winner of Syracuse-Houston. So Oregon State was actually awarded a 12 seed. Now, I know Oregon State is not Southern California, and I know people are going to say, well, this is not the Oregon Sports Show. This is the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I get it, but I just want to get this out there. So Oregon State was awarded the 12 seed despite winning the Pac-12. And they faced Tennessee in the first round, which was darn good. But not good enough considering Oregon State straight up whooped them. It wasn't even close, as Oregon State beat Tennessee 70-56. While in the second round, Oregon State beat Oklahoma State 80-70. I believe Oklahoma State has that really good kid that I forget what his name is, but he's a really talented basketball player who's most likely going to be in the Cade Cunningham. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, Cade Cunningham was the very talented player, but he couldn't will Oklahoma State all by himself. And then Oregon State just beat Loyola of Chicago 65-58. Adam, I'm sorry that the Ramblers lost to Oklahoma State, but at least you have men's volleyball to cheer on in terms of Loyola of Chicago. So Oregon State is really proving itself to being a true Pac-12 champion. It would have been great to see like all of the Pac-12 teams in the Sweet 16. Unfortunately, Colorado lost to Florida State, but I don't know if Colorado would have beaten Michigan. Like, Michigan is a very good team. Like, they're surprisingly not the most disappointing Big Ten team this season. So there's that. And that's going to do it for the NCAA tournament portion. But that's not going to do it for all of NCAA basketball. There was actually one team that participated in another invitational tournament, the CBI, the College Basketball Invitational. If I could just find it really quick. Shoot. Yes, it was in the CBI tournament, and that team was Pepperdine, which everyone knows the story of Pepperdine. Pepperdine lost in the West Coast Conference semis to BYU 82-77 in overtime. And believe it or not, I thought Pepperdine could have actually made the NCAA tournament. The problem was that they didn't have too many standout wins, and they were pretty much treading above 500. So there's that. Fortunately for Pepperdine, they got invited to the CBI, the College Basketball Invitational. Pepperdine won this was basically an 8-team tournament, and all their matchups happened this week, starting on Monday and ending on Wednesday. So the first matchup for Pepperdine was against Longwood, aka the Lancers. And Pepperdine was able to take down Longwood 80-66, which helped them advance to the semifinals of the CBI tournament, where they faced Bellarmine. Adam says Loyola had its worst shooting day, wouldn't have beaten anybody today. Ooh, yeah, I heard about the Ramblers' bad shooting night, or bad shooting day. So, still a tough loss for the Ramblers. Anyway, Pepperdine faced Bellarmine. Bellarmine actually led in the first half of the semifinals of the CBI, and it was basically gut check time for the Waves, and they actually showed out and dominated Bellarmine in the second half, winning 82-71, advancing to the finals of the CBI Championship, where they faced Coastal Carolina. Now, I don't know much about Coastal Carolina, but I know they're an okay team, so there's that. So, in the championship match of the CBI, Pepperdine actually upset. Well, I wouldn't call it an upset. That's pretty vague if you ask me. But in terms of records, Pepperdine beat Coastal Carolina 84-61, winning the CBI championship. Daryl Polk had 19 points and led the way for them. Victor Obioa had 6 rebounds, and Colby Ross had 7 assists. The full box scores indicates that there were 2 other players in double digits for Pepperdine, one of which being Colby Ross, who had 15 points, while Jade Smith had 11 points. And then, like I said, Polk had 19 off the bench, so actually they had 4 players in double figures, and Victor Obioa had 16 points as well. So there was that for both teams. Or for Pepperdine standouts. And the thing about Pepperdine was that they shot 50% from the field. And even though they only made 8 threes, they're pretty much making everything. And they out-rebounded Coastal 35-33. And here's the stat that really sticks out. Pepperdine only turned the ball over 10 times, while Coastal turned the ball over 19 times. Yike-a-roni. Ouch-a-roni. Honestly, that's how no team can win if they're turning the ball over 19 times to the opponent's 10 times. So there's that right there. But congratulations to Pepperdine men's basketball, as they are college basketball invitational champions. I know people don't really care for that sort of thing, but honestly, it's a postseason championship. I gotta give him props, and I gotta give him the applause button real quick. So there's that in terms of some of the Southern California teams that were in the postseason of this year's basketball tournaments. There weren't any teams in the NIT, but hey, the CBI is just as good. And the fact that we got a postseason champion, even though it's not really the most glamorous thing, it's still amazing. So congrats to Pepperdine. And hopefully UCLA or USC manages to win the NCAA tournament, but USC has a very tough path ahead of them. Like, even if they get past Oregon, they got to go through Gonzaga. Should Gonzaga emerge victorious against Creighton, which they most likely will, and then UCLA's got to take down Bama, and then they also got to take down Michigan, which that's a challenge by itself. So it's going to be tricky, but we'll see what happens. Like, anything is possible. Like, that's the beauty of March Madness. Anything can happen, and hopefully anything can go anyone's way. I just hope that it goes the way of USC and or UCLA. And who knows, maybe we'll get a USC-UCLA championship. It would be really cool if we did, because then we'd have a winner regardless of regardless of which Southern California team comes out on top. And actually, that's not going to be possible if USC and or UCLA meet in the championship, because USC and UCLA are on the same bracket, are on the same side, as USC is in the West region while UCLA is in the East region. And if some reason UCLA gets past Alabama and possibly Michigan/Florida State, it would make the semifinals, while USC would have to get past Oregon and/or Gonzaga/Creighton to advance to the semifinals, where they would meet UCLA. It would be cool if we saw both of those teams in the semifinals, but it would also be pretty dicey because I'd feel bad for one team that would lose. Maybe not so much for UCLA, but I respect UCLA. It's just that I like USC more because I'm a USC fan, but I digress. But that's going to do it for the NCAA men's and women's basketball portion of the show. And that's going to do it for everything regarding the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I'm not going to be off the air just yet, though. Like, in about 1 hour, I'll be calling a game or broadcasting a game via USRN2. I'll be broadcasting the Arkansas versus Oral Roberts men's basketball game, the Cinderella story that is Oral Roberts taking on the Peppa Pigs known as Arkansas. I'm just kidding. The Razorbacks of Arkansas. I just like to have this little joke of Peppa Pig. So, Adam says, give me Oregon State, Oral Roberts, UCLA, and Creighton in the Final Four at this point. All craziness. Well, it wouldn't surprise me. So, basically, Adam has Creighton beating Gonzaga and the winner of USC, Oregon. He has UCLA advancing to the Final Four, which I can dig it. He has Oral Roberts continuing with Cinderella story, and then Oregon State continuing its Cinderella story, though they would be backing the pack. It'd be quite funny if Oregon State and UCLA made the NCAA championship. Basically, it'd be a rematch of the Pac-12 championship. It'd be quite cool, though, considering some of those kids on Oregon State are from California, such as Ethan Thompson. Oh god, I'm blanking on some of these guys' names when it comes to Oregon State. I shouldn't be blanking on their names because I should be knowing this. I'm going to have to look at the roster. Hold on, let me do that really quick. Jared Lucas, that's his name. And Gianni Hunt. So, how dare me for forgetting some of those guys' names on Oregon State. They're SoCal guys. I gotta give them their props. So, there's that right there. But I'd like to see Oregon State and UCLA in the final. So, we'll see. And I like the story that Oregon State's coach had. The coach recently lost his dad, and he was actually... I think he worked for Loyola of Chicago, and it just made today something very interesting. So, interesting and coming full circle. So, there's that right there. But that's going to do it for today's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for tuning in. Like I said, I will be back with a live broadcast on USRN2 between Oral Roberts and Arkansas. It's sure to be a fun time. You can catch me going live at about maybe like 10 minutes before the game starts. The Oral Roberts Arkansas game starts at 4:25, and like I said, it'll be broadcasted on USRN2, and it's going to be a fun time. So definitely give that a listen, and thank you all for tuning in once again. It feels great to be back after a week hiatus. It makes me feel like I've been gone for a week or so, but that's alright. Without any further delay, however, it is time to get on out of here, because I got me a live call to prepare for. Y'all feel me? Thank you all once again for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Big shout to the chat room for popping in. Larry B, Pierre Moss, Marcus Losgrit, and Adam Karnick for tuning in. I greatly appreciate y'all tuning in and taking time out of your day. It really means a lot, especially since this was my first show back in a week. I know it's a little cliche to say that, but honestly, it feels great to have. And thank you, Adam, for saying good show, Teran. It really means a lot. And that's going to do it for today's show. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the weekend. Have yourselves a great enjoyment of NCAA men's and women's basketball. And I will see you maybe Monday. Yeah, Monday for Set Point. Have yourselves a great rest of the day. And remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace.